Let's go to the SEC, where the battle for the West was won by the Alabama Crimson Tide. They are now 1 win away from essentially clinching the SEC West and setting up a date with likely Georgia in Atlanta. And just like all the old Alabama LSU games, this one was a shootout from the start till about the end of the third quarter. Gone are the days of 9-6, Garrett. This is, the new normal for LSU and Alabama. And it was a really fun back and forth between Jalen Milroe and Jaden Daniels, two quarterbacks that are growing up before our eyes. Jaden Daniels, obviously, a little bit further ahead of where Milroe was, but man, I don't know how you can't walk away from this game impressed with how far Jalen Milroe has come this season, how far he's come since that debacle against the Longhorns, since that, disappearing act against USF the following week. I'm impressed by that, but I want to start, this was a fun back and forth game until Dallas Turner hit Jaden Daniels, and that hit was called for roughing the passer. It was reviewed for targeting. It was not called targeting. That's a hit. I've seen a lot of people talking online about how that was a dirty hit, a cheap shot. I really don't think it was. I think that's a hit that's celebrated about 10 to 15 years ago in college football, and it makes a highlight reel for Alabama's, hype video to get into the stadium next year about 10 to 15 years ago. Those happen. Those happen 5 times in a game where it's just a big hit. This one happened to be roughing the passer. Don't think it was a cheap shot, but it did knock Daniels out of the game. LSU tried to put him back in. I think that was pretty irresponsible. I thought it was pretty obvious that he was, struggling. I don't want to say for sure he had a concussion at that point. I haven't read the, diagnosis or anything.
He definitely got his bell rung. He wasn't
at
he
the
wasn't 100%.
at the very least. And I don't think it was necessarily responsible to throw him back in there, but not going to go too deep into that. But it was a fun shootout until that moment. And after that, that was a big stop, regardless of how it happened. It was a big stop that Alabama got on that drive. And the defense just never really looked back. They figured out a way to stop that LSU offense. Jalen Milroe, growing up right before our eyes, played his best game as a member of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And like we kind of highlighted on the previous show, it kind of came down to which defense was going to get more stops. And that was the Alabama defense. Alabama stepped up. LSU showed more cracks like we've seen all year. And that's why Alabama has the inside track to get back to Atlanta as we move forward in the season.
Yeah, just to kind of go off of that hit one more time, I don't have a problem with the hit necessarily. Yeah, it's a tough play, and maybe in today's day and age, you got to call something like that. But I think you're right. I think that's just a good football play where you got a guy coming in there to, you're playing in a heated rivalry game. This is their best player. You're not going to go in and think, oh, how do I just nicely tackle him, with good form and everything. You're trying to go in and make a statement. You're trying to make him regret his decisions, which, obviously you're trying to not go in there and hurt anybody, but this isn't just an easy, soft game, right? You're trying to go in there and make a statement. And when the emotions are running that high, you want every play to be big. I honestly thought there were a couple hits earlier in that game that Daniels took that were a lot tougher and a lot meaner than what he got on that play. Yeah, it looked like he wasn't okay, and I don't think he should have played after that point. But, that's not for me to say. That's for, I don't know, Brian Kelly and whatever his staff is, and they got to figure that out.
Brian Kelly, known safety expert.
Yeah, no, he cares. He wants to make sure everything goes.
He would never put anybody in danger for his own benefit.
No, of course not. No, what are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. But no, this story is all about Milroe. Look, Milroe wasn't a prolific passer last night, but he didn't have to be. He was a dominant runner. He ran the ball 20 times, 155 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground. This is just him wanting it more than anybody else on the field last night, and I think you have to give him major props for that. And that's why I think we have Alabama. I mean, look, they got the outside shot at a playoff now. If they end up winning the conference, even with the one loss,
they control their own destiny, right?
Yeah.
Like if they went out there in the playoff easily.
Yeah, if they go and beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, their one loss is to a very good Texas team early in the season before any of your guys develop. And you can clearly say that Milroe looks better now. And, they found which guys they wanted to be their role players and which guys are their receivers and which guys are their running backs. Then you can easily make the case for Alabama making the playoff. Obviously, they got to win out. I don't really think that they have what it takes to beat Georgia right now. I think Georgia's just on a different level dominant. But I mean, look, if Milroe puts on a performance like that, I'll take Alabama to beat just about anyone in the country, because if Milroe's playing at that level of dominance with that amount of want to, they can win a shootout with anybody. That was one of the things we talked about in the pre-show, was that they don't want to turn this into a shootout with LSU. Well, it turns out Milroe wanted to turn this into a shootout. He was like, nah, give me the rock. I'll take it. This is mine. And so shout out to him. Massive play. Now, for everyone saying this is a Milroe Heisman moment, I think that's premature. I think there have been much better players, including Jaden Daniels, that are more deserving of the Heisman at this point in the season. But I'm not going to say never in this one. He could put together a late season type of run, and weirder things happen than the Alabama quarterback winning the Heisman Trophy. So, it's a great performance for him, nevertheless. And I think you got to be really excited about where your season is if you're an Alabama football fan.
Biggest stat to me was that third down that you see on the screen right there, 11 of 14. LSU just could not get Alabama off.
That's just scheme win.
And it was scheme, and it was Jalen Milroe and company just not willing to be denied a lot of times, right? Like, how many times did he take off running and just will himself to a first down?
That's because he knows he can, because he knows that the spies aren't going to be able to do their job, and they're not playing good enough defense to stop him from picking it up when he needs it.
Absolutely. And, it was scheme, it was talent, and just it was third and whatever. You felt confident that Alabama was going to pick it up on Saturday night. So big stat right there. That swung the game and ultimately is what helped Alabama wear down LSU.
I will say, for as crazy as this game was and as many points were scored, it's crazy to me that there were no points scored after the 13:01 mark of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
This game was basically silent for a whole quarter of football after, multiple scores all night long.
And I think that a lot of that had to do with the Daniels situation, right?
Sure.
That's certainly why LSU started to shut down a little bit. And Alabama kind of does what Alabama tends to do. Like, Nick Saban is very good at reading the room and knowing, risk management is his forte in situations like that. What do I need to do to just take the air out of the ball, get out of here with the W? I don't have anything to prove I'm Nick Saban. So, that was another big elements of that as well. But again, 42-28, Alabama over LSU. Inside track to Atlanta for the Crimson Tide.
Gracious him. How about that?